Lagos, the heartbeat of Nigeria, is a city that never sleeps, a cosmopolitan hub where history meets modernity. From its colonial beginnings to its status as one of Africa's megacities, Lagos has been a beacon of economic opportunity, cultural diversity, and political power. But beneath its vibrant surface lies a deeper, complex narrative, one of contested identities, shifting ownership, and the enduring influence of land. Who owns Lagos? Who holds the power? And what does it truly mean to be a Lagosian?
The story of Lagos is as complex as its people. From time past, Lagos was a convergence of different cultures, the meeting point for the indigenous Awori people, Benin Kingdom settlers, and returnee slaves. This odd mix of cultures and identities created a foundation for cultural richness, but also sparked tensions over land and belonging. These early contestations shaped the city we know today, raising a fundamental question: who can truly claim to be a Lagosian?
I believe Lagosian being used to refer to people of Lagos affinity is I doubt it's older than 60 years or 50 years at the most. So, but it's totally different from a Lagos indigene. It's not to be confused with a Lagosian.
It is commonly known that the Saleko people are those that are really boast of being Lagosians, and the Yorubas at that time occupied not only Lagos but Ikorodu, Epe, that all together is now classified as Lagos State.
The identity of a Lagosian is more than just birthright. For some, it is tied to a deeper sense of ancestry and heritage.
You are from a place, and the history of that place is at that land, is in yourself, is in your ancestors, is in your heritage, is in the food it's in the food you eat, it's in the stories you tell, it's in how you get your children to behave.
This raises a critical question. Does the Constitution adequately address the complexities of indigeneity and citizenship?
Well, as a citizen of Federal Republic of Nigeria, I believe it's one constitution that we have, and the rights of a citizen is initiated in that constitution. So, and I think it's also part of this post-colonial constitutional crisis of, this indigeneity and citizenship, which maybe a kind of reform or a review of the constitution can actually address that, because that has always been part of national question.
The Constitution does attempt to define who belongs where. One expert explains the nuances often get lost in interpretation.
People often say, well, the Constitution doesn't help us when it comes to indigeneship. It's not true. Section 14 enjoins the president of Nigeria to appoint a minister, one minister from every state. That means, in the case of Lagos, you must appoint an indigene of the state to appoint as a minister. The same Constitution tells you in Section 25 how to become a Nigerian. You can only become a Nigerian if one of your parents or your grandparents is indigenous to a part of Nigeria. See the word indigenous again. And some people say, well, so what? But then in Section 318 of the same Constitution, then tells you that you must belong to a place. That is your grandparents or one of your parents must belong to a community that is indigenous or belong to a part of Nigeria.
In Lagos, land is more than just property. It is identity. For centuries, land ownership has been tied to belonging, heritage, and power. The Idaho chiefs, also known as land-owning chiefs, have long been central figures in this narrative. But as land continues to change hands, the question remains, what does this mean for the identity of Lagosians?
There were institutions of monarchy, obas, white cap chiefs, especially the Idaho class, who were landowners. So if you go around Lagos and you know the history, you can connect them the way that I connect it for my children. That most of our papa towards Badagry, owned by the Oluwas, Ijora by the Ojoras, Oto by the Olotos, Ikate by the Lagushi, Victoria Island by the Oniru. Between Bode Thomas area towards Stadium by the Swenu, and so on and so forth.
The history of Lagos is written in its land. The Awori people, for instance, played a significant role in shaping the city's structure, selling or leasing land to migrants over the centuries. As Lagos grew into a migration hub, its identity became intertwined with its cosmopolitan culture.
That you have diverse population, diverse ethnic, cultural diversity exists in Lagos.
Migrants into Lagos have integrated into the city by establishing enclaves and engaging in cultural practices and norms. But how do these norms create misunderstandings or misgivings among indigenous Lagosians?
As you were talking, I was reminded of all these titles that are now springing up: Sarkin Hausawa Agigi, or Obi, or Eze1, or Isola. It's laughable at how the creators of these titles do not see the foolhardiness in trying to transport what is a tradition of another part of the country into another part. It makes a mockery of culture, history, custom, everything. It's laughable.
In 1978, the Nigerian government introduced the Land Use Act, attempting to address the growing tensions over land ownership. By vesting land under the governor's authority, the law sought to regulate ownership and administration. But decades later, question remains: has the act truly resolved these challenges, or has it in fact created new challenges?
I think it is. We must remind ourselves what led to the enactment of the Land Use Act. And the period before that was an extremely overwhelming number of land disputes.
The introduction of English land tenure systems brought new opportunities for wealth creation, but also new complexities in land ownership.
With the advent of the English encroachment into our socio-political life, they introduced the land tenure system that was theirs. Things like leaseholds and freeholds and the likes. And so land could become much more mobile, much more exchangeable. It became capital that you could use to create personal wealth, distinct from your family wealth. So land is synonymous with power, political power. And even with the constitution that we operate today, one of the incongruous parts of our constitution is that we still respect customary title holders, even though the constitution does not provide for kings and obas and what have you.
For some, the question isn't whether the Land Use Act should be amended, but how its provisions can be restructured to ensure land ownership becomes a tool for empowerment rather than a source of conflict.
The point to ask is, what amendment is needed? And I say this in the context of what I know because of my profession as a lawyer. Have we optimized its capacities first to its fullest extent in a way that we can then say it's not working for us?
Lagos thrives on our ability to attract people from all walks of life, making her a city defined as much by our migrants as by our indigenous communities. This diversity has been central to our evolution, shaping our economy, culture, and political landscape. However, the coexistence of migrants and indigenes has also raised questions about inclusivity, identity, and the balance of power. How can Lagos preserve our heritage while embracing our cosmopolitan future?
That we must understand that one of the strongest assets for this city-state is its ability to attract migrant human capital. But you will see that from each phase of its evolution, there are different people who have characterized the essence of Lagos.
The growth and identity of Lagos have always been shaped by its openness to migrants. However, indigenous people of Lagos have strived to preserve their culture and history through its kingship, festivals, cuisine, and indigenous peoples associations.
Should there be institutions that are only for indigenous? Where you can draw the line when if a person's parentage is half indigenous and half not indigenous? Look at me. Should I be excluded for many of these type of discussions? And I wonder whether I get a free pass because my mother is European.
This tension is further compounded by the lack of policies specifically addressing the relationship between migrants and indigenes.
So, we have the National Migration Policy. And when you talk about policy at the national level, it's expected that some of the implementation like actually even at the state level. But more specifically for Lagos State, I don't think we have a policy that is directed at migrant settlers.
Historical events such as the Nigerian Civil War highlight how migration and displacement have shaped Lagos. These events also revealed the complexities of land ownership and resettlement in Lagos. Alhaji Muyin Aka also shares the experience of Easterners during the Civil War period.
The housing, most of them sold it, collect money, they prepare paper, they sold it and go away, and we are not coming back. But eventually, there are some who didn't sell it, who they were a long time going. So, by the time when they ate it so much, they had to run away. They abandoned it. But our people broke into it, they take it over. But when they come back, our people be what we are. Help them to secure it, to get it back. Even they come to report in our office. Some of our boys involved are dismissed to get it in. They got it back.
Beyond policies, Diversity itself is a strength, bringing perspectives and ideas that enrich the city's cultural and social fabric. It is this tapestry of identities that defines Lagos and makes it unique.
Because if a society is one where everybody is the same, everybody thinks the same, and everybody is from the same place, that also is not a good thing either. So you do need people who come from other places with other points of views, with other kind of food, so that what happens is your own community becomes richer, because it then becomes a tapestry. You can't have a piece of broth where there's only one color.
To truly harness the power of diversity, Lagos must adopt policies that address the unique challenges of migration, social exclusion, and cultural integration.
So whatever policy that government was put in place in Lagos, the one that will address the issue of migrants, the one that will address the issue of diversities, the one that will address the issue of social exclusion, name it.
Even with these challenges, many believe that diversity enriches Lagos.
The rights of indigenes should be prioritized, but not to the extent that the non-indigenes feel punished against.
Land ownership in Lagos has become deeply tied to power, both political and traditional. During elections, the identity of who is a Lagosian often intersects with political representation and voters' behavior, thereby fueling tensions.
So in modern day times, where people can just go and buy land or get a certificate of occupancy and get a statutory right, even though they're not indigenously from this part of the country, it causes tension.
At the heart of this tension is the idea of territorial ownership versus statutory rights. Past struggles arise when land ownership is conflated with political influence. Certain areas become symbolic strongholds.
You know that there's some people of certain Igbo extraction, actually voted en masse for Peter Obi, while Yorubas and some other groups also voted for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So ethnic affiliation can actually affect voting pattern and voting behavior of people, of certain. It's not only peculiar to Lagos State alone.
And so it's not unusual that a place like Alaba has attracted people from the eastern part because some people went there first and attracted the swaths of their time. The danger is where people try and approximate that with territorial ownership and not what it is. A statutory right of occupancy at best, subject to the laws of Lagos State. It's a worrying trend when this now is translated into that political power that I said is extra constitutional, but yet very forceful and powerful because it's respected by the people.
This phenomenon of migration and clustering often leads to communities identifying with specific ethnicities and regions. While this truly strengthens cultural ties, it also risks creating divisions when it comes to political power and land ownership.
If somebody threatens your family, what would you do? Protecting and defending, there are also fine lines in there. And perhaps also, sometimes the tone of interaction is what provokes mutual suspicion when there is really no threat.
Sadly, elections in Lagos often amplify ethnic tensions with moments of heightened rivalry. Should this have escalated into animosity?
We should not hate ourselves needlessly because we disagree on ideology, and to continue to remember that people set against each other ultimately destroy. So we can disagree, but never be permanently disagreeable.
Ethnic tension in Lagos cannot be ignored, as it holds the potential to escalate into serious conflict if not addressed. One solution lies in promoting participatory and inclusive governance rather than being divisive. Lagos has made strides in this area, exemplified by a former governor who appointed a non-Lagosian, non-Yoruba individual as a commissioner, setting a strong example of inclusivity.
If you look at the civil service in Lagos, you will find people of diverse ethnic origin in Lagos State. So, but Lagos can do more so that we can reduce ethnic tension, because it is also not good for governance. We talked about complexity of governance due to some of this, all of these factors, but at the same time, we should be preferring solutions. It's not only to focus on the challenges. There should be a way of preferring solutions to some of those challenges.
As Lagos grows, so too does the tensions between preserving its heritage and embracing its future. How can the city celebrate its multicultural identity while safeguarding the legacy of its land and its ancestors?
We must demonstrate, we must practice the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, 100, is a universal declaration that people who are indigenous have an inalienable right to celebrate, demonstrate, practice, and assert their indigenous heritage.
There has to be a respect for indigenous rights. Yeah, I think there has to be a respect that if there is a community where people have lived, have worked for hundreds and not thousands of years, and which has been extended by various other communities coming into it. Again, I speak as a member of the Afro Association, and we call ourselves indigenous. But that was because we were accommodated and we became part of it, and we decided we have to see.
Preserving indigenous identity goes beyond symbolism. It demands action. What does celebrating indigeneity truly mean in a city like Lagos?
We need to celebrate those indigenous rights and not lose sight of them, because that's the strength of the identity of the place, those rights. The Indian Americans, the indigenous people to North America, they're only getting their political recognition back now. They're celebrating. In Wales, language has brought the Welsh people back into prominence.
Maintaining Lagos's architectural heritage is fraught with challenges. Historical structures are often erased in the name of progress. But at what cost exactly?
Bonanza, Perseveranza, Finanza. Government acquired it and paid very, very paltry amount. My mother took them to court, but Nigeria, when the government won, so we lost all the three properties on Custom Street. Federal government has tried several times to even take over this house where I am living, and I have, on behalf of the family, strongly and vehemently objected to it.
We need to find ways in which our built heritage, which is the one I think we can control most, can be restored. And so they're protected sites by law, but then they're also sustainable sites because the government is obliged to dedicate money to preserve those sites.
Storytelling has long been a tool for preserving history. Can it serve as a bridge between Lagos's past and its aspirations for the future?
I think storytelling has to be employed to be able to convey a sense of history, and most importantly, as a tangible way to hand down those stories to new generations. Because if those stories are not told, then they are just kept inside us, especially also the certain age, then new generations coming out are not going to know those stories. And if they don't know those stories, then everything dies.
However, Alhaji Muyin Aka is of the view that maintaining Lagos's rich heritage requires a strategic approach, particularly through attaching conditions to land sales.
Don't give out yours. Don't use it out perpetually. Renewal, term, and revision clause. Get what I'm saying? If people, if you are giving out you are leasing up for 50 years, you saw that, and after 10 years, come back for negotiation, for renewal, and then you look at the market price then.
Lagos is a city of contrasts, past and present, tradition and modernity, identity and diversity. The story of land and power in Lagos is one of constant evolution. And as we look to the future, one question remains: how do we ensure that Lagos retains its soul while embracing its destiny as Africa's mega city?